Okay, so from last week, okay, what are some, let's say, terms that we had gone over up to this point? Cell membrane, B1, cytoplasm, and a nucleus. That's right. Okay, so what what might a function of the cytoplasm be? It's a liquid fluid portion. I don't think we've quite discussed it yet, but it's where all the organelles inside the cell would be found. The nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria. We'll talk about those today. And one of your questions was perhaps what was one of the three types of, or three portions of a cell that they all have in common: the nucleus, cell membrane, cytoplasm. Okay, and before I forget, if we take a look over there on Thursday, we have some terms that are due, and then we'll also do evaluation at that point in time, and it's time to move forward. We just have one individual gone, and I believe this is approximately where we had left off. And one of the, what do I say, aspects that when we talk about sizes in zoology, uh, bacteria really doesn't have a whole lot of what we have to discuss in that class. But if humans were not on this earth, animals would not ever know the difference. But if bacteria got wiped off the face of this earth, it's believed that we would not last very long. There are many types of bacteria that are beneficial to us, but when we look at that of bacteria, many are unicellular, okay, as opposed to organisms that are eukaryotes, which means they're multicellular and they have these cells. They carry out specific functions. And one way to look at that, whether it's volleyball, band, or football, you have different components that make up each, let's say, unit. You have your woodwinds, you have your brass and percussion, you have your linemen, your backs, and your receivers. And then in volleyball, you have your defensive people, setters, and hitters. Okay? Is there a more distinct breakdown than those three? Okay? Setters, hitters, and pat. Okay. Okay. So a lot of this organization would be the same in that of humans. Okay? Four types of tissue that will make up organs then. Okay? These various organs then make up an organ system, and then ultimately an organism. Okay? So this is where we left off with, so this is approximately where we. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. Can someone give an example of an organ system, do you think? That's just, okay, that's an organ. So an organ system would be, um, sure, the skeletal system, but what about two different organ systems that might work together? Immune system might work with the lymphatic system. That's true. Your cardiovascular system would be that of your heart and your lungs. For instance, your muscular system and skeletal system would work together to make organ system as well. Oh yeah, proceeding forward. So different types of organelles. Now again, this probably doesn't seem that interesting at this level, and I would have a hard time, let's say, not, I wouldn't say arguing, but defending that, but yet once you get to your smart balance testing, your ACT testing, I want you to be successful for that. So can anyone possibly think of a hormone, for instance? That's one. Testosterone. That's what differentiates men and women. Okay, those are certainly hormones. Anything else? We kind of talked about this in a little bit in organic chemistry and then again in physical science. But when you individuals find something to laugh at or laugh about or something to that effect, you might leave that situation feeling pretty good because laughing is proven to be good for a person because your brain releases a feel-good hormone known as serotonin, okay, and dopamine. Okay, I meant dopamine, not serotonin. Okay, so also we've got Halloween just about 8 weeks away. I suppose say 4 in September, 4 in October. Yes, yes. So with that, one of the things I saw in the news last night, a business owner had purchased an empty building. Is going to make that as a haunted house. I can't remember. It's off of Interstate 29, and that's in its name. But some people really, really enjoy going through a situation like that, or seeing Stephen King's It Chapter 2. Maybe some of you are looking forward to that. Maybe yes, maybe no. So there's a specific reason some of you like to see those movies. How many does it startle you and just scares you? I wouldn't say to excuse you, whoever that was. Okay. So does that not bother you once you get home and maybe you're all by yourself or something like that and you just saw that it doesn't bother you? Maybe think, are we desensitized to that? If that makes any sense, you know what that means? Okay? Like maybe if caffeine was to keep a person awake, well then to try to keep yourself awake, you got to drink more and more Mountain Dew. That's what we mean by desensitized. It doesn't have the same effect that it used to. But how many of you like having that adrenaline coursing through and all of a sudden your heart's palpitating? All of those different types of hormones have a base substance we call cholesterol. Okay? And what do we know at this level? What do you know about lipids? They're fat compounds as well. What would that mean as far as solubility in regards to sugar? How would solubilities of lipid fats be different than that of sugars? How many of you drink Kool-Aid? Still. Okay, powder form, right? Well, we're going to say it's a powder form. Or even if you just add sugar to water. What does that sugar do? Disappears. Mixes in with the molecules of water. Lipids, however, fats, or if you take vegetable oil and dump that in water, what happens? Do those two mix? No, they float. They stay separate. So one of the functions of these hormones, which are based off of cholesterol, is that they're composed of lipids. They do not dissolve in the blood. So therefore, it can move from point A to point B, whether it's from your pancreas to the rest of your body, or your adrenal glands, your body, or different types of uh, glands in your endocrine system that secrete that needed hormone to the rest of your body. And again, it doesn't dissolve in the blood. All right. So, the plasma membrane, composed of lipids, and that's very important that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. Yes. Man, football players getting thirsty. Yeah, that's fine. Huh. There's only. Huh. Oh, gotta wash them down, huh? Fair enough. Okay. When it comes to this room, this entire room is the cell, and that doorway could be that of the plasma membrane. Okay. If that door is locked all the time, it just happens to have a magnet, just like many other staff members around here have. Their doors are locked. You just pull that magnet out, and then the door shuts, and then it's always locked. I mean, I don't hardly ever unlock that door. But in the morning, one of these unlocks the door, one of them does not. Okay? So what happens is, as this slides in, okay, turns the, I don't want to call it the spindles or the shack, I don't know what the proper term is, but this one does, where this one does not. Okay? So when we talk about these membrane proteins, okay, they have receptor sites on there that allow certain substances in and out of the cell. Okay? So the reason that's so important is one of the things we talked about last week. First responders, they carry what substance with them if they find someone unconscious with possibly fentanyl overdose or heroin overdose or any one of those illegal drugs. Something called Narcan. And that Narcan does something specific to these receptor sites, so it does not allow that drug to continue having an effect on the body because it blocks kind of like these sites on this key and does not allow that substance inside the cell anymore. So that's how your cell membrane plays such an important role, is the receptor sites located on there, kind of like a key going in the door. It has to have the right makeup and unlock the situation to get in. And we have to have that type of a system, or else real bad things could happen. At this level, we're not going to go into the depth of that. But anyway, one of the things we want to do is take a look at some of these examples. So open up to page. Get that down. Page 74. Okay. Yes. Okay, on page 74, it says basic parts of a cell. This is kind of a review from last week, but okay, plasma membrane. The cell's outer boundary, called the plasma membrane, okay, or cell membrane, covers the surface and acts as a barrier between the inside and outside of the cell. Just like we've talked about, the specific keys let substances in and out of the door. Your cell membrane works very similar to that, okay? All materials enter or exit through the plasma membrane. The surface of the plasma membrane is shown in figure 4-6A. And we'll get into that at a later time. Cytoplasm, that's the second part that all cells have in common. The region of the cell it is within the plasma membrane, and that includes the fluid and the cytoskeleton. And all the organelles except the nucleus, okay, is called the cytoplasm. The part of the cytoplasm that includes molecules and small particles such as ribosomes, but not membrane-bound organelles, is the cytosol. Okay, we're not going that far in depth. I don't believe cytosol is one of your vocab terms either. Okay, about 20% of the cytosol is made up of protein, so we're not too concerned about that. But the nucleus is going to be one of your more important terms this entire semester. Okay. Cells carry coded information in the form of DNA for regulating their functions and reproducing the cells. The DNA is in some types of cells floats freely inside the cell. Okay, other cells have membrane-bound organelle that contains the cell's DNA. Okay, the membrane-bound structure is called the nucleus. Most of the functions of the eukaryotic cell are controlled by the cell's nucleus. The nucleus is often the most prominent structure within the eukaryotic cell. That's why we said this is going to be one of your more important terms that we're going to spend time with this semester. It maintains the shape with the help of the protein skeleton called the nuclear matrix. Okay, the nucleus of a typical animal is shown in figure 4-6B. Okay, so again, three main things that all cells have in common: nucleus, plasma membrane, and cytoplasm. Okay, next we want to go ahead and skip this plasma membrane. We're talking a little more further in depth on page 7-7. Okay. The plasma membrane has several functions. For example, allows only certain molecules to enter or leave the cell. It separates internal metabolic reactions from the external environment. In addition, the plasma membrane allows the cell to excrete waste and to interact with its environment. So again, letting materials in and out of the cell. Membrane lipids. The plasma membrane, as well as the membranes of cell organelles, is made primarily of phospholipids. Phospholipids have a polar hydrophilic phosphate head and two nonpolar hydrophobic fatty acid tails. Okay, now we're not too concerned about what's polar, what's nonpolar, what head is located where. Okay, the most important thing that we want to talk about in this section is the result. Skipping a couple sentences. The result is a double layer called a phospholipid bilayer. Okay. Cell membranes of eukaryotes also contain lipids called sterols. So that's why when you said estrogen, testosterone, adrenaline, those are all common names for, yeah, they're hormones, but if you illegally take this testosterone, what's that called? Steroids, and that's why we call these sterols. Okay? Called sterols. Between the tails of the phospholipids, the major membrane sterol in the animal cells is cholesterol. Cholesterol is the basic unit for all hormones. Sterols in the plasma membrane make up the membrane more firm and prevalent, the membrane from freezing at low temperatures. Okay. Okay, we will talk more about the nucleus tomorrow. So we have some of them vocab terms for you to work on, and they're due on Friday, or excuse me, not Friday, Thursday. Then you have an evaluation at that time. So if you don't have them started, you don't have to panic. You've got time to get them done. So We will continue with this content tomorrow. We're also going to continue with the fight for animals. Catch up with you next time.